back to the FSA for a second. In 2010, it was announced that the FSA would be restructured into two distinct regulatory bodies, the Financial Conduct Authority, which would be independent, and the Prudential Regulation Authority, which would be incorporated into the Bank of England. First of all, what prompted this shakeup, and how did it improve the way the UK regulates its financial activities?
What happened in the UK is that in 2009, the then Conservative opposition, and in particular the Shadow Finance Minister, the Shadow Chancellor, George Osborne, said that they wanted to change the regulatory structure. And I think one has to recognise that there was a bad reason for suggesting this, and there was a good reason for suggesting it. The bad reason was a bit of straightforward politics. Gordon Brown, the then Chancellor, had invented the FSA by taking banking supervision out of the Bank of England in 1997 and putting it along with securities regulation and conduct regulation in the FSA. George needed to tell the British people that the financial crisis was Gordon Brown's fault, and one way of making this message was to say it all occurred because we've got a bad regulatory structure. Gordon Brown created the FSA, that's why you have a crisis. Therefore, I'm going to put it right and vote for me rather than this idiot Gordon Brown. That's how politics works. Having said that, in principle, I was a supporter of what George intended to do, and I always have been. I mean, when I was appointed to the job of the FSA in 2008, the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, who appointed me, asked me whether I agreed with the structure of the FSA versus the Bank of England. And I carefully said I thought it was something I would work with, but it is not something I would ever have done. I think that it does make sense to have all prudential regulation together, and for that prudential regulation to be very close to monetary policy and therefore the central bank. And in particular, I think the most important innovation of the new structure is the Financial Policy Committee of the Bank of England, where you are able to bring in an integrated fashion the insights that arise from macro monetary analysis and the insights that arise from prudential analysis and bring them together in what people now call a macro-prudential focus. And indeed, in my own Turner review, as it was called, of Why the Crisis Occurred, which got published in March 2009, I argued then that one of the biggest missing bits was the financial policy, the macro-prudential focus. And one logical way to deal with that problem is not only to create a financial policy committee, which I was a very strong supporter of, but to bring the prudential and the central banking together. So I would rather not have had to divide the FSA in two right in the middle of still struggling with a financial crisis. That complicated our management challenge that we were having within the FSA to work out who was going where, which were going to the FCA, which was going to the PRA, who was going to do what jobs, at the same time as still struggling with a banking system where we were worried that banks were going to go bankrupt. But in principle, I think it was the right thing to do, and I think we are now in a better position to have a unified focus on the one side on prudential and a unified focus on the other side on conduct. And I think there are different analytical approaches, different styles of approach which are required for prudential regulation and conduct regulation, and I think they will be more effectively expressed within the PRA and FCA. Albeit, you always have to realise with organisational change that when you shift the boxes around to solve one set of coordination problems, you will create another set of coordination problems. And in 10 years' time, somebody's going to be saying, oh my God, who are those idiots that separated prudential and conduct? Look at the things that have fallen in between the gaps. I mean, that reflects the fact that there are no perfect organisation structures at all. All organisation structures that you can think of solve one set of problems and make another set of problems worse.